Wednesday, October the 6th, 1943. On Monday night we bombed Frankfurt after the usual busy day of preparations. We took off at about 6:30 and Joey arrived over the target at about 9:40. We had just dropped our load on the rats below when there was a terrific crash and perspex pieces of metal, wood and other junk came hurtling into my cabin. My light was blown off its base, so that was gone. The starboard outer engine caught fire and so did the starboard wingtip. Immediately we were coned by searchlights and dived to extinguish the flames and get out of the searchlight. We were now on 3 engines and had about 400 miles to go back to England. So we looked around and surveyed the damage and found that things weren't too bad. All the glass roof had been blown off by an incendiary bomb dropped from an aircraft flying above us. It had continued its flight through the floor of the air bomber's compartment. Another had fallen on the starboard wing, setting the wing tip and outer engine on fire. I'd lost my light, my airspeed indicator, fuse box blown off and smashed, and my log sheet. Before we left the target, I recovered all my equipment. It started off with the wireless operator holding a torch over my table. After we left the target, I used a small light from the roof, which had to be greatly dimmed as my curtain between my cabin and the pilot's seat was in shreds. When we reached the enemy coast, the port outer engine went on fire and had to be feathered, so we had to get back to England on 2 engines. As we were losing height, we landed at West Walling in Kent, where we were given great help by the people there. We made a safe landing on 2 engines, and that ended another trip. The bombing itself was good and well concentrated, but the incident was not at all pleasant. On landing, the spinner of the port inner engine fell off, but no one got in the way of its flight. When we got out at West Malling, we found that the port inner engine was in a very bad state, and a complete incendiary bomb was lodged on top of the radiator. Luckily, it had not gone off. For the present, the main consideration is bed. Good night.
We were all able to do the other people's job. In other words, we could become a gunner if needed. The wireless operator could navigate. Most of us could actually fly the aircraft, because every time it went up, Peter would give us a shot on the controls. It was better to know other people's job, if so you could step in if it was necessary. We never needed to at any time, but it also meant that if your navigation was good, you really did keep out of trouble. Whenever that the bombs were dropped, we then, made our way home as fast as possible. Preferably to get over the sea, because that was the best place, to get out of the way. After your first tour, you had a year off, and I was teaching navigation at that time. And then we wanted to get together again as a crew, so we always kept in touch. And I think with a wee bit of common sense, we could have gone again, done our second tour together. The Air Ministry weren't prone to think about things like that. But as it was, our second tour crew were very, very good. Our pilot was another Peter Clifton, and the others had all done a full tour before. And they were excellent. This is Peter Clifton and myself, and the wireless operator and the bomber. The second tour was mainly doing a lot of work jamming the German communications. We didn't really carry many bombs at all. The second tour, when we arrived at the airfield at North Creek, the CO said, "You'll be flying when the birds are walking." And the work we were doing was necessary, that we had to take off whatever the weather and then get back again whatever the weather. And North Creek was marvellous because we could take off in thick fog when the birds were walking and then get back safely. There was one airfield where they actually had a trench that was all the length of the airstrip, and they poured petrol down and set it alight, which helped the fog to rise, and then we were able to land. Well, I certainly did 30 in the first tour, and then quite a few then on the second tour.
So you're a rare breed in the sense of having undertaken so many flights.
Yeah, to do
returned.
two tours was quite unusual. I mean, to finish one tour was often
Great success.
pretty difficult.
Yeah.
I can always remember being met on Blackpool Station by somebody who told me I had been posted to Dunning Hill Park. The wire had Dunning Hill Park in it. Nobody knew where it was, and then we discovered it was Sunning Hill Park. It was an S instead of a D, but it took a whole week to find out while I saw all the shows. My work was mainly working with prisoners of war when they came back to this country. Some of them had been in prisoner of war camps for maybe 5 years. So we had to rehabilitate them at Sunning Hill Park in Ascot. And I was given the job of running the library. And during the war, they had many of them had studied in prison camp with books that were sent from the Bodleian Library in Oxford. I had to go to the Bodleian Library and pick up all the books that were needed so they could continue their studies. And the other job I got there was to take these ex-prisoners of war up to London and show them round the city. And of course I arranged theatre visits and things like that as well. And we used to go to the Daily Express building to show them all the newspaper being produced every day then. That was a picture taken on the day I got my Distinguished Flying Medal. So that was taken just outside Buckingham Palace at the Victoria Monument. So it's my father and mother and Betty. So just my father and mother that got into Buckingham Palace. June the 26th, 1945. This was VJ Day, and this was when I got to the top of the Canadian Embassy, and I took that photograph. You can see then crowds and crowds of people around the Trafalgar Square, and I was just about as high as the Trafalgar Square monument. And very sad. I mean, you did feel very sad in a way for Germany, for the people of Germany, because it was a great tragedy that somebody like Hitler made them declare war on us. Absolute madness, really. And I think anybody who thinks now of any kind of conflict is really just unbelievable.